Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sherlockian interview for the Great Sherlock Holmes debate. This evening, it's a very special interview. We're interviewing the deductionist, the UK's closest thing to a modern-day Sherlock Holmes. And we're talking to Ben. Ben, where are you dialing in from?
Thank you for having me. I'm dialing in from Stoke-on-Trent, which is right in the middle of England.
Fantastic. So, as a Londoner, I generally get a nosebleed when I go north of Watford. So, how far up is Stoke-on-Trent?
In terms of driving, we're looking at least maybe a 3-hour drive from London.
Fantastic. So it's proper north.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We're just above Birmingham, just below Manchester.
Fantastic. So how we got to know each other was through your best-selling book, The Monograph. So we published this, must be a good 5 years ago now, and it's been consistently one of our bestsellers. Tell us a little bit about the book, Ben.
Okay, so The Monographs, I wanted a book that would have been readily available when I was training. I wanted something that collated as many knowledgeable insights into how to develop the attributes of how I imagine Sherlock would have them today, and how to train them, how to master them, the things to learn, the things to watch out for, how to cultivate your memory, how to cultivate the mindset, how to read clothes, deduce jobs, spot liars, read the tattoo marks, jewelry, see if people have been imprisoned by the kind of shoes that they wear, really obscure entities like that. Try, and as best as I could, leave no stone unturned for somebody who had never even thought about this skill set before, and take them right up to being like a pretty deft at utilizing these skills, but also not forgetting the people who have been using these skills in some sense or another for many years. They would also find many useful insights and techniques and things to tweak in order to make their readings of people better, more direct, more accurate. And it was sort of like an almost Herculean task to try and get that into one book that wasn't the size of 3 or 4 house bricks.
When we first met and we first started going through this, you do quite a lot of one-to-one training in groups, and this was a way of you being able to get your techniques and what you've learned over many years of deductions out to many more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of my students I train via Skype, or if they live local, they commute to me in terms of hour-long sessions. But yeah, I've been doing this as true to how I believe is possible for the better part of 17 years now. And there's not really been a day gone by that I haven't been training, practicing, learning, reading, obsessively thinking about how to improve, and not just almost navel gaze with knowledge, because the tendency with these type of things is you can develop a lot of knowledge on a topic without having the capability to utilize it. So I'm making sure that it's working. I'm making sure that these techniques are tried, tested, and verifiable, and those are the only things that I would ever regurgitate back to my students in that sense.
One of the things that's fantastic about working with you, Ben, is that we normally with our authors, I get to see the written word, but I don't get to see people in action. And here's a couple of pictures from a book launch that we did in London, and you've supported us with several book launches where you come and you do you showcase the deductive skills in a live environment. And here's another one which we did at the Sherlock Holmes Hotel. This is a fantastic one, Luke Coons' book launch. This one sticks in my memory because you did 2 deductions here, one with the A to Z,
yes,
which blew me away. Tell us about that deduction.
Okay, so when I'm trying to create an hopefully entertaining show out of this nature, inherently at its core, it's quite dull to try and show that you've got this knowledge about this bit of information that helps you come to the conclusion of a case, so to speak. But to put that into an entertaining light, you have to think of it in a different route. So particularly with the A to Z, I forget the exact quote, sorry, that Sherlock uses, but he makes reference to keeping an ongoing knowledge or working knowledge of London. So I thought it would be really interesting to try and memorize an A to Z of London, or as best as what I could, and then hand the A to Z out to certain people, ask them to name a street, and then I would tell them obviously the place in the A to Z where it falls, and then I would tell them the grid reference for the exact street in the back. I'd tell them the one that was above, the one that was below, the page number that it was on, the streets and turnings around. It was like trying to put the cabbie knowledge for all cabbies in my head to try and utilize as many different working ways to get as close as I can to how Sherlock may have done it himself. Were he alive today? Would he have sat by and memorized an A to Z? Or would he have spent a lot of time traveling the many streets and sites of London in order to take it into his head? I don't live in London, so that's the way I went about it.
Yeah, and it's a kind of storing the information, a bit mind palace type, storing it away in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of thought and care goes into the proper cultivation of the mind palace, the memory palace, the Roman room method, the principle of loci, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. So you have to make sure that when you're storing huge quantities of information like that, that the mnemonic devices that you're using are strong, but more importantly, they're stripped away of unnecessary things, because a lot of times people would tell you that you have to clump together as much information as you can in order to make a good, successful working memory palace. That's not true. If you just think about the proper creation of the building that you're using inside of your head, then it can keep going, just as Sherlock used it, just as Magnuson used it. Perhaps not for as underhanded techniques as he does, but you can definitely use it in the same way to make sure that you navigate such huge pieces of information for long periods of time with ease and with accurate retention.
What I loved about that particular event was there was such a contrast between that demonstration of memory, where you had 3 or 4 people picked random streets and you got every single one of them right, and then we had the exercise with the shoes, which was just mind blowing. So I'm going to test my memory now. From my memory, we had about 45 people there, and you went around the room and introduced yourself to everybody. Then you were blindfolded, and 3 of the people at random from the audience removed their shoes and put their shoe in front of you. And you then, even blindfolded, you then described several things about the 3 people that owned that shoe, including the kind of place they lived, what kind of job they did, all that kind of stuff. And it was all kind of bang on. And I think that really shocked the audience more than the A to Z memory bit, because there's always a feeling of, well, how did he find that out?
Yeah, and to be fair, that's one of the things that if anybody ever makes contact with me, that's usually the first thing they bring up is the whole shoe routine, if you want to call it that. Yeah, that's another one of those things that is of almost it's like a folklore when you look at the things that Sherlock was capable of doing and the insights he could gain into people via their shoes. So I've spent a great number of years looking at how to do that. So I tried to craft what I would believe would be an entertaining premise with regards to that, as opposed to walking up to a person, looking at their shoes and telling them about themselves. Because when you look at the person, you get everything else with it as well. So I wanted to see how much I could tell about the shoe just through using my my touch, my smell, because I did have to smell the shoes, as gross as that would sound to do out loud. But yeah, so it was a case of making sure I'd met everyone and keeping a working knowledge of each person as I go.
And then in 2015 we really stepped it up because we had the launch of the MX book of New Sherlock Holmes stories, which many of the people watching this hopefully will know. It's the largest collection. This is book 1, so this is volume 1 of currently 12, but there's 3 more coming in May. It's the largest Sherlock Holmes collection in the world. We've been doing some numbers on it this week. It has 12 volumes. We'll have in May 15 volumes, over 330 stories, over 7,000 pages, and now over 150 authors taking part. And it all started back in with humble kind of aspirations back in 2015, but rapidly grew. And we had a launch event, which was on the 35th floor of Heron Tower in London. And the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle family were there, lots of luminaries from around the world. You can see in the middle of the picture here, Roger Johnson from the Sherlock Holmes Society of London, for example. And we had about 110 people there, and you did 2 or 3 quite incredible, I'm going to nick your word now, routines. You showed some cracking deductions there. So it's been a really fantastic journey. I wanted to jump onto, though, your web series, because this is a way that everybody can engage with some of your really, really interesting deductions. This one is one of my favourite parts of one of the episodes. Tell us a bit about it, with this musician.
Okay, so this is a chap in Ireland that we met. He's an incredible musician, guitar, piano, everything. He's amazing. And so I thought it would be really interesting to try and pick apart what song he was about to play before he played it, just based on how he was holding the guitar. And I'd managed to deduce from where he was placing his fingers the type of music that he may have been thinking about. And through further deductions that I could make about his interests and in his hobbies, in terms of how he spends his social time, that sort of clued me into the exact song that he was about to play before he played it. This is from episode 4, which is all about memory and the different things capable with memory. Another thing that I did in that episode was I tried to see how well you could focus in memorizing certain things while being drowned. Which is another thing in terms of trying to put that to the test. But this specifically I like, because I'm a big music fan myself. Obviously, with Sherlock being a virtuoso on the violin as well, it's a stone that I couldn't leave unturned. And with the Deductionist web series itself, there were 6 episodes altogether, and we used each episode to focus on a particular skill or a particular attribute that a deductionist must have, in my humble opinion. And then the final episode was about giving these skills to one of my students to help him solve a crime.
Fantastic. I couldn't resist but to take a still from episode 3. So this is a link between, if you like, Sherlock and Houdini.
Yes.
So tell us about this. This is you do a lot of very, very intense physical stuff as well, alongside your deductionist stuff, and this is around Houdini's punch.
Yeah, well, I've been training in martial arts for almost 25 years as well, and when you look at Sherlock's physical stuff, the whole Baritsu, he was a single stick boxer, bare knuckle fighter, and various other forms of incarnations throughout the adaptations as well. So again, it was an opportunity that I couldn't resist, and sort of jumping off Doyle's relationship with Houdini. Houdini obviously leads you onto more mystical stunts and things, but one of the things that I think it was the one that killed him as well was his ability to take any man's punch. I thought, with it being the 21st century, we'd do it a little bit differently. I would try and take any man's kick. So we didn't just get any men in. We got, I think these 2 guys were martial arts experts. And then we got, I think he was a Muay Thai fighting champion from Ireland as well. We got him to do it as well. And it was literally just a case of standing there, arms in the air, and bang. And it came. And then hopefully, I didn't cry on camera.
Well, for most of the episodes in The Deductionist, the the fans that are watching it can kind of emulate and carry on. But we wouldn't definitely recommend this one at home.
Oh, no, no, not
lots
at all.
of training went involved ahead of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, do not try something like that at home without anywhere close to decades worth of training. Don't.
So, a full-time deductionist. So, modern deductionist today is not a consulting detective in the same way as Sherlock Holmes was from Baker Street.
No.
What does a full-time deductionist's diary look like, Ben?
Well, I have two sides at the minute. I have my entertainment side, where I'm working at weddings, parties, corporate functions, trade shows, book launches, as we've done. But I also have my teaching side as well, where I spend my time teaching businesses about reading people and sales techniques. I have worked on a handful of cases over my time as well. I'm just talking to a behavioral science group in the States about joining forces with them to deal out these sort of courses towards the forces over there, the FBI, that type of thing. But 90% of my calendar at the moment is brought up through the performance-based stuff. So yeah, you'll see a lot of my videos is at private parties. I believe this one's from a wedding as well, and it's a real fun event because the array of people that you get to test your skills with differs between meters of moving people. You could be talking to a group of neuroscientists at one table, then a group of builders at the next, then a group of, I don't know, salespeople, hairdressers, whatever, all within the same room. And that's such, for a deductionist, that's, it makes me salivate and getting all of these cogs working in my head just to try and make sure that, you know, each day isn't the same, really.
Well, we're going to be utilising your skills again coming up in May, on the 25th of May at Undershaw. So this is the first time we're kind of going a bit public with this as what we're planning on the night. We have the Great Sherlock Holmes debate. It's on the 25th of May from about 6 o'clock in the evening. It is at Undershaw, so the home of Stepping Stone School, the former home of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, just south of London in the United Kingdom. And we're going to have dozens and dozens of the world's leading Sherlockians taking part via the web. So we've got Sherlockians taking part from all over the world, from India to the US to all over Europe. And we're going to be tackling a very, very important subject, as we have done with the previous Great Sherlock Holmes debates. If you remember back to the first one, it was BBC Sherlock versus Warner Brothers, which was the big item at the time, the big topic. So we're going to be tackling a really, really important issue in the world of Sherlock Holmes on the evening. And there will be tickets live at Undershaw. We're going to do some online tickets via Eventbrite as well. And we're going to have a live stream via Facebook. And we're going to have the deductionist.
Yes.
Live. And I know you're going back to those cogs that are whirring in your head, Ben. You already told me you've got 2 or 3 things planned that you're playing around with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's it's for me. It's sort of like, how can I condense a Sherlock Holmes story, a novel, a pastiche, into like a 15 minute performance piece? What would that look like if Sherlock were to indulge his love of the dramatic and get up on stage and do something for somebody? Well,
having seen you've done it many, many times, and every time I feel humbled and blown away by the skill. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been fantastic having a chat with you tonight, and look forward to meeting up with you soon.
Yes, I literally can't wait. It's going to be amazing.